Good morning and welcome to the NBA Daily. Coming up, the Cavs lost their third straight. We got a couple of game winners and we're going to compare them. And then Jovan Buha breaks down the Lakers, LeBron's comeback, and what they need to do the rest of the regular season. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, S. How are you?
Good morning, sir. Man, what a night of basketball. Oh, my goodness.
Another interesting night. We have playoff implications on the line with a lot of these games. But before we get to the games that actually have some weight in the standings, we got to talk about the former best record holder in the league, the Cleveland Cavaliers. For the first time all season, they don't have the best record in the league, S. They lost their third straight game to the Kings. Big win for the Kings, who are trying to stay in the 9th spot and hopefully, get into that 8th spot in the play-in. But I want to talk about the Cavs, like losing 3 straight for a team that we've seen just cruising all year long. It's starting to raise some questions. I joked and said that they were frauds because they lost 2 in a row. But now that they've lost 3,
now they're definitely fraud. Right?
They're obviously not frauds, but I am a little bit nervous that the scouting report's catching up.
Yeah, I mean, look, let me try to contextualize the losses. So Orlando, they don't have Evan Mobley. I think some of the physicality that Orlando threw at them outmatched. Clippers, they had a fully healthy roster, but also some of that physicality. I think the length, especially Zubats, did a great job in that fourth quarter to be able to dominate, right? You look at this game against Sacramento, I actually thought they did a really good job defensively against them. Devin Carter, the rookie, was just a pest at the point of attack. I thought Malik Monk had a lot of good moments defensively. So this Kings team that's desperate sort of dug in and played good defensive basketball with no Zach LaVine, no Domantas Sabonis. So I think, credit to the Kings for locking in and doing what they had to win this game. They had some electric moments from DeMar and Malik Monk in that fourth quarter to basically seal the deal. But I do think, to your point, we are seeing teams be more physical with Cleveland. And when you're missing a guy like tonight, the Cavs were missing Darius Garland, right? Right. They are so much the sum of their parts. They are, again, like I mentioned, like this egalitarian offense. When you take out one of those components, it makes it a little bit easier to be physical with them, take away one part, and then now you have that advantage, if that makes sense.
Well, we've talked a lot about Darius Garland and what he brings for them in fourth quarters.
Totally.
And they obviously were missing that. And you're going up against a Kings team that really kind of has its back to the wall a little bit. The game didn't mean that much for Cleveland. Is another thing. I'm not trying
OKC now could potentially get home court advantage
all
to the
Oklahoma
playoffs.
City needs to do. Their destiny is in their own hands. If they win out in the regular season, they don't lose a game the rest of the way, they would be guaranteed home court through the finals if they made it there. So no big deal. Big deal. Don't lose another game. Speaking of losing games, I want to ask you a question. We had a couple of game winners. Which one was the worst way to lose? You had Cade Cunningham versus the Miami Heat, sending them to their 9th straight loss, with a banked in 3-pointer. And it's Cade Cunningham. Really good, but he hits the bank 3. So you chalk a little bit up to skill and put yourself in position to be lucky, but it's also luck. Or Andrew Nemhard, who just as a byproduct of good basketball offense, movement, comes off a screen, catches a catch and shoot 3 wide open, 14.7 seconds left, and puts the game away for the Pacers. Which one's the worst loss?
Woof. Well, I think it's the worst loss would probably be the Mavs because they are officially out of the play-in tournament. The Suns winning against the Bulls tonight made it so that the Suns jumped to 10th. Mavs now move to 11th, and Suns have a tough schedule moving forward, but they're kind of in the driver's seat because they have the head-to-head advantage tiebreaker-wise with Dallas. So, to your point about OKC, they kind of just have to keep winning in order to keep their spot here with 10th. When it comes to the game winner, though, like the greatness of the game winner, I think the theatrics of Cade, national TV, first, I think it was like one of the first times the Pistons were on national TV this year.
They got flexed into this.
They got flexed into this game. I think that part of it makes it so much more intriguing because of how great this Pistons season has been. I mean, you think of like all the great moments from this Pistons year, the records that they've broken and we've talked about. This was sort of a cherry on top, affirming everything, right?
Yeah. Cade Cunningham, by the way. Got to eat my Cade Cunningham pie.
Cade Cunningham, yeah.
25-point triple-double for him in a national TV game, which the broadcasters kept kind of bringing up that the Pistons were flexed into.
Right.
You know, they don't really control the schedule.
They should maybe flex them in
again,
more.
I talked about this with Fred Katz on the Cats and Shoot podcast, and we talked about the Knicks, and I think that the Detroit Pistons are a little bit of a nightmare matchup for the Pistons. And I think that this idea that we're just going to like pat them on the head when we get to the playoff time and just say, hey, congratulations, guys, you did a really good job to get here. Now go sit while the adults move on into the second round. This team has enough juice that I think that they could be a really scary matchup for anybody in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, look, they are extremely confident, and you watch them throughout games like it's Ron Holland talking trash constantly, and he's one of their rookies. Isaiah Stewart, who's just like always in the mode of like defending his teammates. You have these veterans in Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway and Malik Beasley, and those guys are uplifting the younger players. It just feels like the camaraderie is there for them to like believe in themselves more than anybody else believes in them type of thing. And it just makes for a really dangerous team in the postseason.
It was a real Esfandiar's choice there to make you choose between talking about Cade Cunningham and the Pistons and Andrew Nemhard.
I know. It was tough. It was tough.
Got you.
Hey, look, it was a pretty good game for the Pacers too. Whatever. It's all good.
It was. Speaking of the Knicks, they went to San Antonio and they showed up to a rodeo. My guy, Sandro Mamukelashvili, Mamu, had the game of his life off the bench for the Spurs. 34 points, 7 of 7 from 3, 13 of 14 from the field, 1 of 1 from the free throw line, because you got to hit those. 9 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and only 1 foul in 19 minutes.
That's
incredible game. Garma Joba.
Oh my goodness. I don't know what that means, but I agree. Garma Joba.
Mamu. He is, what a game.
So there's so much to talk about here, actually, honestly. So 34 points in 19 minutes. That is the first time that has ever happened in NBA history. Ridiculous to think of that a player scored 34 plus points in 20 minutes. First time ever. Okay. The other thing, he's apparently a very, very good friend of Flava Flav's. And so Flava Flav was at the game. Post-game, he joined in on the post-game press conference. Mamu got MVP chants throughout the game, which of course he did with the performance that he put on. But apparently him and Flava Flav went one-on-one before the game, and they split the games that they played. I think they like won one, lost one, and that's what motivated Mamu to drop 34 on the Knicks.
Mamu is an extremely nice guy. That's all I'll say about that. And also, hey, by the way, Goga also had a pretty nice game.
Yeah.
The Knicks did not have a good game.
No, they did not.
Not a good game for the Wolves, who lost to the Pelicans. So we, let's kind of update the standings just a little bit. The Timberwolves are desperately trying to get out of the play-in, and they keep kind of shooting themselves in the foot. They're losing these games that they really need to win. Zion Williamson had a really nice game, but the Pelicans are not a good basketball team, and the Wolves are supposed to be. The Wolves now statistically are the 8th seed. They have they are 1 game back of the Warriors for that 6th spot. They're tied with the Clippers. And look, man, they were on this nice winning streak.
Yeah.
Now they're stumbling a little bit. This is kind of what they've done all year long, where they have these nice runs and then they just fumble the ones they're supposed to win.
Yeah, they're probably the most confusing team in the NBA, just because, we've been through stretches where I try to convince you that the Timberwolves are better than they actually are. Yeah. And then they kind of prove me wrong in moments like this. They lose in that weird fashion to the Pacers, and then they lose tonight to the Pelicans. And they didn't have anybody on the team who could guard Zion Williamson. Like, there was just, and for what it's worth, he's not a lot of players can, yeah, right. But they didn't have anything for him. And I think that's something to look forward to if you try to think of like other bigs that in the West that they're going to have to try and guard and defend against. And so the Wolves, it's just confusing to watch that team night in, night out, not have a true identity to hang their hat on.
Yeah. The Suns win, the Mavs lose. So the Suns are now in that 10th spot. The Trailblazers are only 2 games back of the Suns after beating the Grizzlies. This is starting to sound like basketball when they're talking about the tournament. But the Grizzlies now have fallen to the 5 spot in the West. Right. The Nuggets are the 4 spot, and the Lakers are back in that 3 spot.
Actually, the Lakers still. Oh, you're right. You're right. They are.
The standings just updated for us while we were recording. It was very nice. So as we're looking ahead a little bit. We're thinking about playoff time.
Yeah.
Who has like nothing? They have to play like there is nothing to lose. They have to win every single game for the rest of this week. I mean, we're thinking the Wolves here. The Suns are really on the precipice. Yeah. The Blazers, it seems like they kind of want to make the play in.
Who's the team?
Who's got to play the most desperate basketball?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the Suns. And it's funny because, Ryan Dunn finally out of the doghouse, Oso Iguodala playing finally minutes. Their rookies were actually being really impactful early on in the season. They fell out of the rotation. Now they're back in the rotation.
Been a game changer for their defense to have those guys back out there.
100%. And another thing to mention is that in this little stretch where they've been playing better, no Bradley Beal. And I think he has been pretty detrimental on the defensive end for them generally, just not having that effort to buy in at the point of attack. And so their point of attack defense is a little bit better over the last week or so. I'm interested to see how the Suns look because they have a really, really tough schedule moving forward too. So not only are there a bunch of must wins so that they can stay in the play-in, but they're doing it against some of the best competition. So good test, tough schedule.
Yeah. The Lakers took care of business over the Nuggets. No Jokic, no Murray again for the Nuggets. No miracle, although Aaron Gordon had another really nice game. But the Lakers took care of business. And we caught up with Jovan before the game. So Jovan Buha, our beat writer that covers the Lakers over at The Athletic, caught up with him before the game. And he mentioned this team needs to shoot. And they shot the ball extremely well. I mean, what did they put up in the first quarter? I mean, I thought they were going to score 60 at one point. And they wind up with 46 in the first quarter. And here I am thinking, wow, Jovan, just so prescient of mind here. He really understood what was going to happen tonight.
Luka nearly outscored the Nuggets in the first quarter. He had like 20 plus points in like 6 minutes of action. He was just rolling from out the gate. Like they were throwing single coverage at him and he was just like, all right, I'm walking to the paint and getting buckets. And as soon as they started throwing doubles at him, it was like, okay, I'm getting Austin Reaves involved. I'm getting whoever else involved. So really good offensive game for the Lakers and pick up a huge win when it comes to the standings, right?
Yeah. And another big game for Austin Reaves, 22 points, 8 assists. I mean, again, the Lakers look good. Guys, stick around after the break. Jovan will be here to let us know when LeBron is coming back. The Lakers are still playing without LeBron James for now, but he's back soon. Here to talk about when he's going to come back and hopefully give us an actual date, Jovan Buha, who covers the Lakers for us at The Athletic. Jovan, I'm putting you on the spot. I want to start there because, look, this team, since the Luka Doncic trade, they feel like a contender. And when LeBron was out there with Luka, I mean, we got a new version of Showtime, and I think it was bringing out the best in both of those guys. Obviously, he's been out for a minute now. What's the latest on LeBron, and when can we expect to see him back out there?
Yeah, so he's technically day-to-day, but he's been day-to-day for over a week now. So maybe it seems more like week to week. But it seems
it's like philosophical there.
Exactly. I think the soonest we will see him is Saturday against Chicago, but probably more likely at some point on that road trip that they're about to go on. They're going to Orlando and Indiana and Chicago and Memphis. They got a 4-game trip next week. So I think most likely at some point on that trip, but there is a slight chance that he is back Saturday against Chicago.
Okay, interesting. That's going to be interesting because nice little schedule going there for Lakers.
Hopefully, then they need reps.
Yeah, exactly. They need
as many reps as possible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How about Rui Hachimura? Because obviously he went down with that knee injury as well, and I thought he was a really important piece for them when Luka was there as sort of a release valve. What's the update on Rui?
Seems like Chicago is in play for Rui to make his return. He started doing some 3-on-3 action, so that's their ramp up process. I think the Lakers, with both players and in general, have been a bit cautious with injuries this year. They are trying to prioritize health over seeding. So I think Rui's on a similar timeline to LeBron. He's a little bit closer to returning. So I think that's probably more of like a 50-50 for Saturday, and then if not, at some point early on the road trip.
Health over seeding his injury is interesting, though. That's very, very interesting. Like, I mean, the fact that they're willing to concede the injury aspect and letting these guys get healthy versus trying to go for that 2 seed. Is that more of a confidence in what they have this year, or just the fact that they have LeBron and Luka on the roster and they don't care, right?
I think it's more the latter. They just feel like in any series they play, they're going to have 2 of the 3 best players, if not arguably the 2 best. I think if you put them up against Memphis, you put them up against Houston, they're confident they have the 2 best players on the floor. So I think regardless of kind of how the seeding plays out, I think the 2 exceptions would obviously be OKC and Denver because of how great Shea and Nikola Jokic are, individually. But outside of those 2 matchups, which it doesn't seem like the Lakers are going to drop to 8th. I think LeBron would have to have some type of setback or maybe like a re-aggravation upon returning. And even the Denver matchup, like I guess they could match up something like 3-6, but that's seeming unlikely for now. Seems like Lakers will probably finish in that top 5. So assuming they're in that top 5, they like their matchup against Memphis or Houston or potentially Golden State. So I think for now, of course, they want to be the 2 or 3 seed if they can secure that. And they're still in that mix, to be clear. But with this Denver, Milwaukee back-to-back and they have the 3rd toughest remaining schedule the rest of the way. And you look at it, 2 games against OKC, 2 games against Houston, Memphis. It's a pretty tough schedule down the stretch. 8 of their final 12 games are on the road. So realistically, I think the 2 seed is probably a long shot. Even the 3 seed is probably the best case scenario. And I just trend more toward like being rational about this. So I think they're probably going to be in the 4-5 mix. And whether they have home court or not, I think that they like their odds against anybody in that kind of range.
Yeah, I think they just need to avoid a 4-5 matchup with Denver. And I tend to agree with you. Houston, Memphis, both of them feel pretty beatable for the Lakers. During this stretch without LeBron, I think it's safe to say Austin Reaves has really stepped up his game quite a bit. Now, I'm of the opinion he's done that all year, but you look back at his last 5 games, it's 30, 28, 37, 28. What is this like to have this much playmaking out there? I mean, because one of the big issues for the Lakers during the LeBron era has been a lack of playmaking that you can trust. And now you've got these 2 guys in Austin Reaves and Luka Doncic who are showing that they're next level kind of playmakers, and you're going to add LeBron to this mix. So Austin Reaves, is this real? I think is my question, right?
Yeah, it is real. And I think he is a player who we've seen, like he's got a versatile skill set where I think he could scale into different roles. And that's kind of been looking at his first 4 years as a Laker. He goes through these like stretches of like 2 to 3 months kind of in different roles. Sometimes he was like a 6th man. Sometimes he was a starter. Sometimes he was on the ball more, off the ball more. And I think that speaks to the versatility and scalability within his skill set. And I think you've seen even pre-Luka trade, whenever LeBron or AD would miss a game, Austin would step up and get you 25, 30 plus points as the number 2 guy. And in some ways, it kind of makes you wonder, like, if this guy was in a different situation where he was the true number 2 on a team, or even the number 1, like, what would that look like? What would his numbers look like? And obviously, I think there would be maybe some concern about, like, how good that team would ultimately be. But from a numbers and productivity perspective, he is up there with, like, I think we should talk about him in that, like, best number 3 conversation. I think there are several, I like Chet comes to mind as, like, a guy.
It's become a conversation recently.
It's become a conversation. And okay, like, Chet is someone that I would clearly take ahead of Austin, but I think a few weeks ago, people would probably have him, like, middle of the pack in that conversation. I think he's right there in, like, that top 5 of, and if we're just talking offense and not looking at both sides of, it's just like, who do you want as a number 3 to, like, get you a bucket or play make, run a second unit? Austin, I think, is right there basically with anybody. So it's been incredible to see his trajectory. He's certainly improved and taken it to a different level this season. But I think this is certainly for real. Like, he had a couple of slow games there where he came back from his calf strain where he didn't look like himself. But now these last few games, he looks like Austin. And when they need him to step up, he has done so this season.
Yeah, Jovan, you mentioned that scalability, and I think that's the one thing that pops out when you watch Austin Reaves play basketball. It's the ability to just morph into whatever the team requires. And pre-Luka, it was, all right, cool, they need a secondary creator, secondary scorer. He's having one of the best isolation scoring seasons of his career. Great pick and roll player who was having a good pick and roll season last year, now having an even better pick and roll year. And you look at how Luka has affected that. You wrote about the geometry of their offense sort of changing when Luka coming into this game, and how Luka and JJ have worked to kind of create a seamless offensive function to everything that they're trying to do. How is the relationship between Luka and JJ morphed into something that seems to be already fruitful for them?
Well, to go back about a year ago in what JJ likes to call his past life, when he was an analyst and a podcaster, he did an interview and he was asked if you could coach any player in the NBA, who would you coach? And he said Luka Doncic. And I think that in and of itself is telling as to how JJ sees the game and the type of player that he, or the type of players that he likes. But we've seen this team completely shift their offensive philosophy, where pre-Luka trade, they ranked 26th in 3-point attempts per 100 possessions. Post-Luka trade, they are now 2nd in the NBA in 3-point. Like, that is a significant shift, right? We're talking bottom 5 in terms of in attempts to top 2 behind only Boston. And it's funny because Boston's still like almost 10 attempts ahead of them because they let them fly. But I think with one of the things that JJ had lamented earlier in the season was the just how tough things were for them offensively, despite having LeBron and AD and those guys not necessarily commanding a defense's full attention in terms of always drawing two to the ball. But you see it now. They just run high pick and roll with Luka and Jackson Hayes or some type of double drag action. And all of a sudden, you get two guys on Luka, and then it just becomes a math game of 4-on-3 or 3-on-2. And when one or two of those guys are LeBron and Austin Reaves, that's just like grade school basketball for the Lakers. So with LeBron, especially if he is the guy on like the weak side, kind of catching that outlet pass or that swing reversal, all of a sudden he can get downhill. He can shoot the three. He's been shooting above 40% on catch and shoot threes this season, or he could find the open man and like just it becomes really simple. So I think the way that teams kind of freak out whenever Luka runs a pick and roll, that's become a significant advantage for the Lakers. And really they've been, the shot quality has gone up. The results have not really been there. And I think they are due for some positive regression offensively, where once they start to actually make these threes at like a league average rate or potentially even higher, just because they're getting so many open ones, you can see this team take a significant step offensively to match the defensive end. So in terms of Luka and JJ, I think they see the game very similarly. Like Luka's fine playing off the ball. We've seen him screen a little bit more. We've seen him come off pin downs and they've run some off ball actions for him. So I think JJ's made it clear that Luka is the point guard. He is the primary ball handler, as he should be. And I think right now, the biggest thing is just the reps, that they got to figure that out. But in terms of how they see the game and just being on the same page, I think really JJ shifted more toward what Luka wants. But what Luka wants is what JJ wanted from the beginning. They just didn't have the personnel.
Yeah. Before we get out of here, quickly, what does this team need to improve on before we get to the playoffs?
Interestingly, I think the offensive end. Defensively, since the Dorian Finney-Smith trade, they are 4th in the NBA in defensive rating since mid-January, when they kind of had a turning point there. They lost 3 in a row, and then they had this big turnaround. They're 2nd in the NBA in defensive rating. So I think the defensive end, despite like optically not having the best personnel necessarily, JJ's game planning and the buy-in from the group has led to this team being consistently a top 5 defense for going on 3 months now. So I think that's pretty sustainable. Maybe they slip a little bit, but they should be at a minimum a top 10 defense moving forward. I think the key is getting to the top 10 offensively, if not even the top 5, given their personnel. And that has been a little bit more of a struggle, where oftentimes if you just scan the box score briefly, you'll see it's like Luka, LeBron, and Austin are double figures, sometimes Rui as well, and then basically nobody else. So I think right now they have a pretty top-heavy offensive attack, and it's not because of you're lacking a playmaking or guys playing selfishly. Yeah. They are generating shots for their role players. They're just not really making them lately. So I think once that starts to click and they start to face those 4-on-3, 3-on-2 situations more consistently with the full roster, that's where you'll start to see the offense ascend to a different level. So I actually think it still continues to be the offensive end that's a work in progress, but that's the side to me that has the highest upside. And if they can make that click, that's where I think this team can win a championship.
That's right. Jovan Buha, let's quote him, says the Lakers need to make shots. Make some shots.
But you're going to quote the last part that I said they can win the title.
Go and read Jovan over at The Athletic. Follow him for everything Lakers. If you follow him on the app, you get a notification every single time he posts a new story, which feels like every day, man. Jovan Buha, thank you for joining the show. That's going to do it for us, folks. For Es Baraheni, I'm Dave DuFour, and this has been the NBA Daily. Thanks for waking up with us.